Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla Kempers. I am a writer. I write fantasy and sci-fi, and I am trying to become a published author. This is going to be episode 2 in the Path to Publishing series, and this episode is going to be titled something along the lines of, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't even know how I want to be published anymore. Everything is changing. My brain's a mess. I've spent the last few days trying to figure out what I need to do in order to get ready to start querying traditional literary agents. And through that process, I have reconsidered multiple times if traditional publishing is actually what I want to be doing. I did make a video explaining my thought process when it came to traditional versus self-publishing or indie publishing, and I had pretty much come to the conclusion that traditional publishing was what I wanted to do. And the reason that I had made that decision was because I liked the idea, I was attracted to the idea of having sort of a team behind me. So a literary team who helped me with edits and marketing and getting my book ready for publication, who had connections to big publishing agencies and big publishing houses. And I liked the idea of me not being the only person on my team. And I think I also was considering traditional publishing because it felt, just from what I understood about traditional publishing, it felt like that was the route that was going to give me the most freedom with my time. And this is a really difficult thing for me to speak on because I've never technically been published. At least I've had a poem published in a local magazine or local newspaper or whatever, but I've never published a fantasy novel, a full-on fantasy novel. It's very difficult for me to try and navigate which way I actually want to go when I haven't tried either way. So I've been watching different YouTube videos, different channels, I've been Googling things. I'll leave any resources that I can recall linked down below, but a lot of them were just me Googling. And the more I learn about it, the more worried I get that traditional publishing is actually not the correct route for me. And I just don't really know what to do at this point, to be totally honest. I think that there's a hole in my research when it comes to people who have done traditional publishing and then also have other things that they do, like also have another job. And I think that I'm starting to get worried that the reason is because when people are traditionally published authors, they're trying to make it their full-time job, which is confusing to me because I know that a lot of traditionally published authors still have to have other jobs. So that's a whole area of confusion. I'm also considering the fact, because I've mentioned it before, and I'm someone who does multiple things. I don't only have one interest. Writing is obviously top tier in my interests. It ranks very highly. It's something I've been doing my whole life, longer than literally anything else that I've ever done. But I do have other things that I want to be able to have time for, and I have other things that I want to be a big part of my life and other ways to diversify my income that are it's really important for me to be able to do those things. So then I start to go the other way, and I worry that me wanting to do all of these extra things is going to get in the way of a traditional publishing timeline. Because if I find a literary agent and I am going to get traditionally published and I start to build a career out of that, am I going to be placed on this very rigid timeline that, works with the publishing industry because that's how books are sold in that world? And is that timeline actually going to work for me? Because is a literary agent really going to take me if I'm the kind of author that maybe writes 3 great books one year, but then needs 2 years off before the next one comes out? I don't know. I'm having a hard time finding information on how it works for people who don't follow that clearly stated rigid structure of traditional publishing. To wrap all of that up, if I'm being completely honest, I don't actually think that those are things that I need to be thinking about yet. I think the reason that came up was because I was trying to figure out a timeline for when I wanted to start querying this book, and then I started looking into traditional publishing and literary agents and how that works and when they're looking and what they're looking for. And I kind of just started to spiral about whether or not playing by those rules was something that would be the best for me, I guess, if that makes sense. So it's tough because I don't know if this is like a personal thing that I need to work on or it's just a traditional thing that I need to avoid. And I don't know, because it's really hard. But when it comes down to it, I'm not querying yet. If I were to self-publish, it wouldn't be until next year anyways. So I think that the longer timeline in these two situations is the traditional timeline. So as long as I stick to the traditional timeline, then once I get to the end of that timeline, meaning I'm ready to start querying, if I've done my research and I've changed my mind, then I can just decide to self-publish instead. And that's totally fine, I think. I don't know. Okay, so the good news is that there are tons of sensitivity readers on Fiverr. This is going to be pretty tough for me because I don't really have a lot of money to put into the editing of this book before I actually start to query it. But also, you know, sensitivity readers kind of have like a specialization and they deserve to be paid. So I know it's something I'm gonna have to pay for, but I am trying to find it at a lower cost just because I really can't afford that much right now. So I did find some on Fiverr, but something I'm noticing is that they have word count limits. So the highest one that I've found so far that kind of matches what I'll need sensitivity readers for, because you have sensitivity readers for all different kinds of people. You have sensitivity readers for characters with disabilities, you have sensitivity readers for queer characters and non-white characters. But within those different types of sensitivity readers, because obviously everyone has different experiences, you also have different types of sensitivity readers at like an even more specialized level, I guess. So I found a few that will kind of work with the characters that I have. And I would like to point out the characters that I am writing about, the story is not about their experiences as these types of people. Their story, like this, it's a fantasy story, and the themes aren't focused around the fact that the characters are queer or non-white. Like, for example, all of these different types of characters exist because it's a huge world, but the themes of the story aren't focused around, you know, the fact that, for example, a character is queer. So I'm not writing the story specifically from those perspectives for the point of dealing with those nuances. So it's a little easier because it means that I can find sensitivity readers that are a little bit more general, for example. But I still need sensitivity readers. So what I was talking about with the limits is that some of them have word count limits. So the highest one I've found so far that would work for what I'm looking for has a 50,000 word limit, which means, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have not read a fantasy book that is under 50,000 words. So I think I'm either gonna have to pay twice, for example. So if I have a 100,000 word manuscript, then I will just pay twice so that they can read both halves, I guess, if that makes sense. Or I can go through and actually pull from my manuscript parts that might deal directly with the experiences that could potentially be brought up in the book. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. The good news is that all of them are available fairly soon. So I personally don't have the funds right now to pay for them, but they're available, you know, as early as next month. So when I do have the savings for it, I'll be able to pay for it and they should be available. So that's a good thing. And it means that it's less of a factor on my path to publishing timeline, which is good. we have notes, so many notes. So after doing a little bit of research, I feel like the worst times to query are probably during the summer because it's a little bit slower because people are on holidays, but the ultimate worst time to query is probably in the winter, like around the holiday season, so November, December, which I already kind of knew, but it's good to sort of confirm that and also see that, you know, like I assumed, the beginning of the year is a good time to be querying, but it's not limited to just like the first month or two at the beginning of a new year. It's pretty much anything I looked into at least said that January to like May is pretty solid for querying. Like people are pretty open to it. Obviously, when it comes down to it, it is also agent specific. Some agents are only accepting at certain times and you can't just send a manuscript to them when they're not actually open to receiving manuscripts, or you could, but I imagine it wouldn't go well for you and they probably wouldn't be very happy about it. So in general, the first 4 to 5 months of the year is a good time to be querying, and then within that time frame, just whenever the agents are available, which you can find through, I think, something like Query Tracker. I don't know. That's going to be in another episode because I have to look into that. So because of that, I am going to extend my timeline. I feel like it just keeps on getting darker, which is great for the quality of this vlog. So I'm extending the timeline because I can. That's kind of all there is to it. Luckily, since I'm not published yet, it's not like I have any timelines promised. I'm not under contract. I'm going to extend it because I want the story to be the best that it can possibly be before I try to get it published. And then based on how that goes, obviously there might be changes depending on the feedback I get from agents and that sort of thing. So here's what I've written down. So the goal is that before the end of October, so by November, I finish draft 2, which is good. It gives me 2 months to finish draft 2. It's still gonna be quite a bit of writing, but I don't really want to force myself through it, especially because I mentioned I have a second job now. I have more things that I'm doing. So I think that 2 months is a good amount of time to give me to finish draft 2. December, I'm going to start finding sensitivity readers and line up any other types of readers that I need for January. So that includes sensitivity readers as well as my critique partner. And I have another friend here in Vancouver, the one that I spoke about that works in publishing, that offered to read it from the perspective of an editor. So I'm going to send it to them, and then I'm going to do one other person. I'm just not sure who that person is going to be yet. So that's going to be in December. I'm not necessarily going to be getting them to actually start reading it, but I'm going to be starting to like book people basically. So I'm going to start to plan for people to start reading in January after the holidays are done. Editing Kayla checking in here on the morning this is going up. Can you tell that it's morning? I just want to make a quick clarification. I'm talking about it as though this is going to be draft 2 that people are editing and getting their first real look at in January/February. So when I hire sensitivity readers, my publisher friend is going to read it, my critique partner. I just wanted to give some clarification because between the date that I set to have draft 2 finished, so end of October, beginning of November, there's a 2-month period between, you know, finishing draft 2 and then getting people to read it in January/February. So for most of November, I'm going to be in Holland / Europe because I'll probably bop around Europe. I'll just be like visiting people. So most of November I will be there, and then December I'll be back in Vancouver and then in Ontario because it's holiday season. So although those months they're going to be busy, if you remember the vlogs from last year, I don't know if I was vlogging my writing stuff yet when I was in Holland last year. I think I had started because I wrote so much in Holland. The house that my dad lives in, the area is a very small town area. It's like North Holland. It's really relaxing. It's beautiful and it's very inspiring to me. It's also on the North Sea, so pirates. So when I'm in Holland and also when it's winter holidays, I'll probably still be making edits to draft 2. So I want to mention that just because the draft 2 that people are going to be reading in the new year is going to have quite a few edits done. So it's really going to be more like draft 3/draft 4. I just kind of worded it like draft 2 in this vlog. So then January to February, for those 2 months, I am going to get all of those reads happening. My critique partner, the editor, and the sensitivity readers for draft 2. And since that's 2 months, I'll start to get feedback before that 2 months is over. So I will start to actually organize and plan for the edits that I'm getting. Then in March, I am going to start draft 3. So by then I should have had a couple different types of readers. I should have some really good feedback, and I'm going to start planning and then writing draft 3/editing draft 3. Plus, depending on how long those things take, I would like in March/April to get a couple other people to read it again once those edits are made. So probably a couple of the same people that I had the first time, and potentially some different sensitivity readers, just so that I make sure that I'm covering everything. So then April and May are the months that I hope to have all of those other edits applied, and I hope to start querying. So the goal of this timeline, even though it feels very loose, is to have sent out all of my query letters by the end of May, so that I hopefully avoid the busy summer months. Like I kind of mentioned before, if I change my mind and I decide to self-publish, then these last months are going to look a little bit different. But technically, the months leading up to finishing the book should pretty much look exactly the same, regardless of what kind of publishing I'm going to try and go through, because I still want to do my due diligence and make sure that the story is in the best way that I can possibly make it. So that's the plan. I'm going to write that out a little more formally, so it's not this. I'll probably write it on the whiteboard. This is going to be the end of this Path to Publishing episode. The whole goal of this was to kind of just get myself a bit more organized and start to understand what sorts of options I have and how long each of those are going to take, which is a big part of it. It's not actually, writing, but it's part of selling yourself as an artist, which is friggin' hard. So I'll leave any resources I managed to find helpful down below so that you can check them out. Thank you so much to everyone over on Patreon for supporting me, and thank you all here for viewing and being excited about Path to Publishing and just sticking around. I hope that all of your projects are going wonderfully. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.